All right, guys, we are back after a week off. Sorry about that. Church debater and preacher Mike. Mike, what's going on?
Hey, I'm glad we're back too, because
Me
I
too.
miss this. I really
I do
do.
too.
This is fun. It's good
It's
stuff.
kind of kicks off the week right,
It
doesn't it?
does. It
It
really does.
does. Uh, a lot of people listening to the show, a lot of people watching. I'll remind you once more, if you'd rather listen like in your car than actually watch the video, it is an audio podcast as well. And you can find it anywhere you listen to a podcast, Apple, Spotify, it's on them all. It's the same title, Church Debater and Preacher Mike. And if you follow our Facebook group, I'll make sure I put a link to both of those. And I'm excited, by the way, because I start teaching our high school class on Sunday. And we're going to discuss topics that we've talked about in Church Debater and Preacher Mike so they can correct everything we've done wrong. I thought that's pretty good strategy, isn't it?
That's good strategy. I like it.
All right. So, and I better turn on our timer, which I forgot to do. So sorry for the delay here. All right, we're cooking now. So here's what I want to do tonight.
Mm-hmm.
The year was 1854. You know what book was written in 1854?
A book written in 1854.
Yeah.
How about Pride and Prejudice?
How about Darwin's Origin of Species? Okay.
Good stuff.
That was written in 1854. So let's start with that. That is 11 years before the Civil War. Do you know what was the general? We know how that changed things afterwards, but what did everybody believe? What did the scientists believe before that book came out? Was there a lot more Christian faith scientists before then than there were after? Let's start with that.
What I know is the idea of evolution in a macro scale went way on back, even into the 2nd century. That idea had been floated throughout the centuries. But the general view was that there was still God in charge. That was the general view for the vast majority of the time. Even coming out of the Dark Ages, there was still a general acceptance of God. Now, since that time, and I think for my belief system, I think that a lot of people jumped on the bandwagon of Darwin,
right,
because they felt like it gave them an alternative to what they didn't want to be true.
Okay, I've got an alternative theory, but finish your thought.
Well, that's it. That's the thing. I think generally speaking, I think one of the reasons for Darwinian evolution, that's macro, not micro, but
Understood.
Macro evolution.
We'll talk about that here in a moment too. We'll talk about the micro here in a moment too.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people buy into macro evolution because you don't have to believe in God. And I think many people don't want to believe in God. And when you don't want to, you need an alternative. And that is their alternative.
Right. And I'm really saying the same thing, but I think it's also, from what I've understand, people in that field, I don't want to say the scientific field, but you know what I'm talking about, felt like they were really criticized if they didn't believe in the book. So that's a lot of pressure on them.
That is true.
So describe to me, first of all, let's describe what part of evolution is okay for the Christian to believe, and even go into the silly stuff like, did God create a cow, or did he create a Guernsey and a Black Angus and all that kind of stuff? Did he create a calico cat? Did he create an alley cat? I mean, how did all that work?
This morning, I preached up in Grant County, the next exit up or 2 exits up from the Ark. And so that whole concept is fresh on my mind, just having been by it and see it. The idea of what a Christian can believe is more, I like to say, what part of evolution is consistent with scripture? And I can tell you what that is: micro evolution.
Right.
Things change over time, and that's evolution. To be afraid of the word evolution is not the proper view. I don't mind the term evolution when understood in proper context.
Okay.
When you change over time, you end up with evolution. When you change over time from one species to another, you end up with macro evolution, which has never been proven and can't happen, is the point. So I think that the micro over time is undeniable, and every Christian ought to accept it.
Okay. Can you give a specific example?
Oh, sure.
What has evolved in us?
You know, I would say one of the best ways is to notice, for instance, when you take groups of people and you put them in the same place and they stay there over time, they become infused with certain traits that continue to exist. So you might have a group of people. I think it's the Zulu tribe in Africa, that
Okay.
the average man is very tall, and woman. They're, mid 6 feet, because they just have exaggerated that trait over the years. But if you are only in a culture where everybody is light skinned, you're going to have light skinned people. But if you have dark skin and light skin, over time, you have a skin tone that is between the two. So I think skin tone is an example. I think height is an example. I think those kinds of things are examples of microevolution within people.
Okay. And the Black Angus came from that same theory?
You asked the question about cows. Yeah, the idea is, what was on the ark? Was it a Black Angus? I don't know, but I know it was a cow. The point is, I saw, as it relates to humans, you're familiar with, I think isn't it called a Punnett square, where you have a row up here and a row on the side, and on the top you would have A minus AB, A minus A plus, B minus B plus, and down the side A minus A plus, B minus B plus. And when you put them together, you create the genetic code.
Right.
Well, when Adam and Eve had their children, which chapter 5 of Genesis says they had very many, I would suggest that their children had the rainbow of the current types of people in the world.
Okay.
Skin tone, height, all those kinds of things, because all of those traits were in Adam and Eve, and they would come out in all their multiplicity of children. And then that darker skinned child marrying a lighter skinned person would create another, and you would have that ongoing. So what was on the ark? Well, I think there were 2 dogs on the ark. That's just how two pairs of dogs on the ark. I think they had 2 pairs of cats on the ark. They had 7 pairs of cows. And from that came the varieties of each of those.
Okay. All right. All right. In humans, is it possible in microevolution over the years, could there be something in our bodies that would eventually evolve out because the body doesn't need it anymore? Let me give you a specific example. In 2,000 years, if we're still in this world, will the appendix be gone? Because most people think that in today's day and time, it serves no function. Now, I don't know how many medical people I have just insulted, but you know what I'm talking about. Is it possible for humans to evolve in that way?
The term you are talking about is a term called vestigial organs.
Oh, you're on it tonight, man. You're
I'm
on
there, man. I'm there. Vestigial, vestigial organs. So you then say, like you did with the appendix, you say, so what is the purpose? And did it lose its purpose over time? My suggestion, instead of saying that, would be that maybe there is a purpose for things that we've never really understood as to their being there. I personally cannot imagine over time having something like that to disappear. But I can see that we don't understand the function of it. For instance, it seems to me that the spleen was never really understood too well, but apparently the spleen's pretty important these days.
Right.
We figured it out. The appendix may end up being something that we find out is more important than we thought.
Right.
The tonsils may have something to do with infection. There's a lot of things that we just don't understand. I would rather look at it from that standpoint than to try and figure out what things might not be here anymore. Because when you ask that question, don't you also have to ask, well, is it the case that some things were evolved in that weren't there originally? And I have a hard time with that as well.
Yeah, and I can see things leaving our body easier than coming into our body. I will say that.
That may be.
I agree with everything you've said.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention a book I bought. It was written by somebody who believes in evolution.
Okay.
But their theory is, I'll tell you what their theory is. It's called Evolution Gone Wrong. It's by Alex Bezzeride. You haven't heard of them, have you?
No, I have not.
It's it's one of those books that pops up on Amazon because it's cheap. So I guess it didn't sell that well. But their theory was how things have evolved. They mentioned fish and how the rows of teeth have moved in fish over the generations, but you know what I mean, over history, because of what they eat. They need teeth closer to their mouth for what they eat now than they did hundreds of years ago. So the teeth moved. But their point was, this was a whole chapter on teeth. And their theory was that most everything in our bodies got better, evolved into something better, except for our teeth. And our teeth, as a general rule, nobody's got a perfect mouth of teeth without some help in that area. Thanks to guys like Charlie and all those guys. I thought the theory was interesting, but their point was the teeth were the most corrected item in our body these days, because that's one thing that just never evolved on a micro level. Silliness?
Well, I think it is silly from the standpoint of science. Newton's second law of thermodynamics.
Man, what did you do today? You must have had an extra Red Bull or something.
I had 2 bangs. That helped. I believe it's the second law of thermodynamics that says that everything's winding down, the law of entropy. Everything's winding down. Everything's moving toward chaos, not order. And yet evolution demands, macroevolution, demands more order. And so to say that things are getting better goes in fact right against the whole scientific principle of chaos.
True.
So I can't buy that. Now, what I will buy is, I would ask the question of these gentlemen, or whoever they were. I would say, so what is your evidence that teeth have moved? Where are the fish, the same fish that had teeth there, and now they're here? Where are they? That's an assumption. In fact, every now and then, there will be things that will pop up that are found that we didn't really know existed. And or we think they're extinct when in fact,
oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. And
or
so,
even new species altogether.
oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole point. And the point is, where is the fossil evidence? I have a book. Let me reach and get it. Is that okay?
All right.
Does everybody mind?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I'll make an announcement. I'll make a shameless plug here while you're doing that.
You go right ahead.
You mentioned chaos theory, butterfly effect. You've heard of that, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's part of chaos theory.
Right.
I've written a novel called Butterfly Swag
Nice.
that builds on the butterfly effect. There's actually a time travel element. There's
Nice.
some examples, real examples of the kids in school. It's funny. I've handed out some to the students in that I'm teaching, and they love it, man. They've been passing it around and everybody's reading it.
My turn.
So I'm telling you guys, it only costs you a couple of bucks on Amazon.
I'll
So
do
if
it.
you're interested
I'm
at
gonna get
all,
one.
but Butterfly Swag, go ahead.
On the other side of the coin,
Did you write that?
check
you
this
write that?
massive book. Oh no. Oh no. But this book, look how thick this book
Oh
is.
man.
Heavy. This is a book written by a scientist. There he is on the back.
Okay.
And he goes into great detail, giving pictures of the fossil record and support of the creation concept.
Nice.
See, the truth
Nice.
of the matter is, there has never been a discovery of a fossil that counteracts the concept of creation. Ever,
Okay.
ever.
Okay.
And there's not a fossil been discovered that can be called the missing link between what was and what is in a macro evoluted situation.
Okay. Let's close with this. And I say close. I mean, it'll take us a while to do this topic. Probably the second most talked about thing behind evolution when it comes to evolutionary scientists challenging Christians
Okay.
is the creation.
Yes.
Now we do have some that call themselves creationists.
Right.
And I'm not sure all creationists believe this, but I know I met even some people in the church that think the 6 days of creation were actually 6 time eras and not 24-hour days. And in fact, if you even look at the fossil record for the scientists, they are in fact in the same order as their creation, but their time period over which that would have occurred would have been different than the 24 hours.
Right.
So how do we address that? How do we
Number
confirm
one.
that? Are we 100% sure that it was 24-hour days?
I am 100% sure that the language in Genesis 1 is 24 hours.
Okay.
In other words, the evening and the morning were the first day. If it's a period of time, 1,000 years, 500 of it had to be in the dark, 500 in the light. I've been up there in Alaska. You've been up there in Alaska.
Sure.
Man, when the sun doesn't go down, if it didn't go down for 500 years, could we ever survive? Could plants survive 500 years without light? So that's wrong. Number two, you know how the Jews, to whom he wrote it, you know how the Jews tell time?
How's that?
Their day begins at night, 6
Right.
p.m. And that's where he said the evening and the morning were the first day. Number three, the word yom, which is the Hebrew word for day, is in fact used for eons or different periods of time, but never in scripture or in the Jewish mind, ever, when there's a number attached to it. Every time it means a 24-hour period.
Okay.
Number four, it makes no sense to me that you would have eons of time when you look at the order of creation, because when was the sun created to help the plants? We have some problems here.
That is true. That is true.
So I'm going to say that I am confident that the language of Genesis 1 is intended to say that it was 24 hours of time for each day.
Okay.
Now, let me go back to a statement that you began with in answer to this.
Okay.
Why are scientists so anxious to find eons of time.
I
In
know.
the-
I
in
know
the
what you're going
macro-
to say. Go ahead.
In the macroevolutionary world, their theory is that given enough time, the impossible becomes possible,
Right.
and the possible becomes reality. Now that's in macroevolution. You lose people in time. Number two, there are people who struggle because of the fossil record, and the fossil record says eons of time. Let me share something with you.
Okay.
You remember what was the volcano out in, was it Washington? Mount
Is it Vesuvius?
no, in
Vesuvius.
in the state of Washington.
Oh,
in the United
Rainier?
States. Rainier.
Not Mount.
No,
Was
no,
it
no.
Rainier?
Was
No,
the-
that's the tallest mountain. Let's quit.
Right.
Let's stop showing our unintelligence and just.
well, the
somebody will
volcano
tell us.
out west that,
I'll look it up.
yeah, you do that. The volcano that exploded, when was it? I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. They did, over the past 5 or 6, 7, 10 years, whatever it is, they did age testing on some stuff from the fossil or the blow up of the volcano.
Mount St. Helens.
There it is, Mount St. Helens. The time for the volcano to have exploded was a few million years ago, because carbon dating is not trustworthy in the environment in which we live. So the carbon dating said that it was that old. It looks, in fact, many have called it, it looks like a mini Grand Canyon. Happened in a matter of hours. When you look at the Noahic flood, look at the damage that could have been caused in a year with pressure and movement of water.
Right.
And now things look older because of that. Secondly, I would suggest when God made the world, he made it full grown. When those stars he put up in the sky, he not only, as it were, created the star in the sky, he also created the beam from the star to the earth that then would continue to shine. It looks old. How old was Adam the second he was made? 1 second. How old did he look? I don't know, 20?
Yeah, 20 or 30.
Yeah. So the first trees God made, did they have rings? I don't know. Trees have rings, don't they? That's what they are. But we use those to count time. Did God make a tree without rings? I wouldn't think so. So my point is, he made it look old, not for the purpose of fooling people, even though when you don't want to believe in God, you can take that bait, if you will. But he made it look old because by looking old, it had the ability to support the life that he intended to put here.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. I like it. All right. Now I almost hesitate to say this. I always ask you to close with your profound thought for the week, but you've used so many big words tonight. I'm afraid for you to say anything else, but go ahead. Close us out.
The profound thought for the week, huh? I talked this morning up in Grant County, an idea that I'll present right now and close. Do you know that unity is not possible without you and I? Not possible.
I've heard that before. I've heard that.
And I think we need to remember that. In a world of chaos, without you and I, there's no unity. And if you get I out of place, unity becomes untied.
That's good. I hadn't heard that.
United.
I hadn't thought that through.
The word united becomes untied.
That's true.
With I out of place. That's a good thought.
That is true. All right. I like it. I like it. All right, guys. That's it for this week. For us this week. I think we're back on a good schedule now. So hopefully you'll hear from us every Sunday evening, and we will see you next week. Say goodbye, Mike.
Goodbye, Mike.